Good morning, wonderful viewers. I am Mariama KIjera, your host for today's program. Welcome to the first episode of the Teen and Youth Talk, where we dive into conversations that truly matter and are real and relatable to our wonderful viewers. Today, we are discussing youth participation in governance and decision making, an important topic that truly directs or affects our future. To help us explore this topic, we are joined here today by our special guest, Amadou. Good morning, Amadou.
Good morning, Mariama. It's a pleasure to be back here on Atlantic TV, even though it's a different platform, and I am so proud to be part of this inaugural occasion of this edition. It's a special one. Teen and youth matters is quite important, and I feel privileged to be part of this platform today.
Thank you, Amadou. We are honored to have you around.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Amadou is a media professional who is actively involved in youth and community engagement and also the communication assistant of the Gambia Football Federation. Before we explore this topic, Amadou, let me quickly set the stage for our beautiful audience. Youth participation means having a voice in the policies, leadership, and the decisions that affect our country. From community engagement to voting, it is making sure that youth voices are heard and included. To add more to my perspective, I will give the floor to my co-host.
I am fatoumata Bojang, your co-host for today's program. As we all know, youth voices are everywhere, in schools, communities, and even online. But are they really being heard? Today, we explored in teen how some of the challenges and barriers they can get.
Thank you so very much, my co-host. And thank you to our special guest as well, Ahmad. Ahmad, could you please tell us more about the work you do? Because our guests would definitely like to know more about you, even though I've kind of summarized what you basically do.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am currently the communications assistant at the Gambia Football Federation. Aside that, I also work in other organizations, most of which are charitable organizations, so voluntarily. Amongst them is, of course, the Foni Agency for Rural Development, where I serve as the media officer. I am also currently the information minister at the University of the Gambia Students Union, which is actually another youth-led governance structure for the tertiary institution in our cathedral of education system, but also currently serving as the president of Bausar Youth Development Association, of which she is a bona fide member and a citizen of that community. I also serve as the Secretary General to Network of Community Radio stations across the nation, and also Gambia Volunteers Trust. So throughout my life, I've had an overall 20 years experience in the media, 2 decades of media experience, and this cuts across from newspaper, radio stations, television, and digital media. So this is me.
Okay, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Ahmad. Could you please tell us, why do you think young people's voices are so important in the governance in the Gambia?
I think it's a very important question, and in your introduction or preamble, you've highlighted or at least touched the surface of it, yes, with your co-host as well. When you talk about youth participation in governance, for a country like the Gambia, I think it's very special in the sense that majority of our Gambian population is covered by the youth folk. Okay. But how much involved are these youth in terms of governance or political participation and whatnot? She made mention of something very important, that it's not just about being involved, but about participating. And in the participatory process, it's a chain. In most cases, you find out that during elections, for instance, we are always encouraged to go and vote, and exactly, then we cast our vote, and that's it. We don't call that participation in governance. That is just one aspect of it. For me, if you ask me, my perspective of participation would go beyond that. It would mean consultation, like being involved right from the consultation of influencing policies, influencing laws, and also taking part in the governance, maybe taking positions, governance and responsibilities, leadership roles, but also ensuring that the youth are not only seen as beneficiaries of policies or of politics, but also co-creators of our laws, of our policies from the onset. That is, like I said, if you don't involve the youth right from the consultation and waiting until the very end of it and say, okay, youths are the future leaders of tomorrow, come on board, and then we do this. At the end of the day, being future leaders of tomorrow means being involved in the present, and that is now. So that is why, to me, if you ask me, my perspective of youth participation in governance is getting them involved right from the consultation process of policies and laws, but also taking up leadership roles, also holding authorities to account. And that is also another important facet as far as governance is concerned. So youth, like she mentioned, are the lifebone of this country. They need to be actively involved. We will go further later on to talk about the barriers and challenges that they face, because sometimes I also feel like, okay, let's say having an interest in politics is not enough. If you ask me, I would say throughout my 20 years of experience, for instance, I've never, involved in any political, how do I even describe it? Political process of, vying for a position until just last year at the University of the Gambia. All the positions I've held, that is not to say I've not held any meaningful position in governance. I've held so many positions, from president to chairmanship to secretary general to information minister to PR, public relations. I've done all those positions, head boy, deputy head boy, you name it. But all of that were based on appointments. Now, appointments is different from actually getting deeper into, political, where you need to push and pull, have debates and, present, policies and all that, your manifestos and all that. So for the first time in my life, last year at the University of the Gambia, I had a political debate with my opponent. And that was a fascinating experience for me.
Indeed. Thank you so very much, Amadou. It was indeed an insightful session. Okay, moving on. What do you think are the ways that we can encourage young people into taking part in decision making?
Yeah, I think that is very important. Like I mentioned, involving them right from the beginning is important. But how do we do that is what you mean by encouraging them. Exactly. Let's start with our political literacy. For instance, at school levels. How much awareness is there right from the primary school to junior secondary school to senior secondary school in our modules or in our sessions regarding politics? Okay. When you talk about politics to someone, not everyone, but someone, they have that negative perspective around it. The political so yeah, that is a red flag. Exactly. Whether you know it directly or indirectly, it is political because politics is beyond contests. Politics is policies. Politics is national development. It's what puts food on our tables, all of us. Exactly. Because the decisions, whether you are part of it or not, at the end of the day, that law, that policy that is governing someone who is actively involved is the same one governing you. Exactly. If you are found wanting, it's the same beating that you will have. So
sometimes I feel like maybe is the fear. Sometimes they have the potential and other things, but sometimes if you do not believe on yourself, you cannot take up the responsibility.
Yes, we will actually come to that. Those are some of the barriers. The challenges that one face. That young people face. And that is also restricting them from participating in politics and governance. Okay. But again, in what do we do to encourage young people to participate? Like I mentioned, making sure that at least they are put through from the early stage. That is to begin with in our schools, but also having platforms like this. Okay. Whether it is radio platforms or, you are aware of the youth forum I have on Bojang community radio station during my days. The past 10 years, I've been involved on radio stations. A designated program specifically for youth matters like this, teen and youth matters.
Sometimes every Sunday you take.
Yes, every Sunday, every Saturday actually, from 7 to 8 p.m. So if you have these programs every Thursday from 11 to 12, how many viewers are you having currently? Like a lot of people might learn from these platforms, but also not learn, but be inspired. Young people will be inspired to say, oh, it's about time to political, and also that. So having platforms like this is also another way of encouraging. But also government have a big role to play. In fact, they have the biggest role, and that is first ensuring that at least.
Amadou, before coming on to that, later on my host will delve into that. But it's like you mentioned like barriers. So what are some of the biggest challenges youths face when trying to participate?
Yeah, I think one of it is actually the policy itself.
Okay.
Like if you look at the policies or the laws that we have, for instance, Mariama or Fatmata might be involved, might want to have, or might have an interest in contesting, but because the law says you have to pay this amount of money, and politics is expensive. It's very expensive. So that cost is a barrier, is a challenge. I want to hold a position, but the position is saying you have to pay 2 million or you have to pay 1 million. That is restricting me. That is a barrier. I don't have that. I don't have that support. That is one. Revising those policies could actually work. That is a challenge. Another challenge is the age itself. Now, if you look at youth in our context, it's restrictive. There's a limit to say, okay, the youthful age in Gambian laws, I don't know if I get it right because I'm not an expert in this, but it's 35 years and 18 from 18 to 35 years or so. So what happens if I am 36 years? What happens if I am 37 years? And by the way, I am 36 years today.
Wow.
Okay, but now if you look at me, you see a youth man, right?
Exactly.
But okay, if the law is saying, okay, you have to get 35 or 34 to have a seat at the National Youth Council, for instance. National Youth Council, for instance. I'm not qualified to have a seat there if that is to be the case. So cultural barriers also is a challenge sometimes. There is a perception, myths or misconceptions sometimes that, okay, these leadership roles are meant for men. And I think these misconceptions needs to be erased. Let's say, when you talk about youth, mostly the concentration goes to men.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
But
to me, youth is women and men inclusive. As long as you are within that age bracket, you are a youth, and what the access and privilege or right that the man has, you as a lady has it as well. It doesn't mean all presidential roles or all chairpersons roles should be given to men. No, why can't women take those roles? But because of our cultural perception,
and gender,
it becomes a gender. Exactly, those becomes challenge, gender and culture. Exactly. So those things needs like vigorous, radio programs, TV programs, sensitization, civic education, and all whatnot. So all those things are barriers. Again, we have the will, but we are not participating. Youth will sit in their corners or be on platforms or on social media, engaging politically, and when it comes to the actual reality on the ground, take up positions, no one comes in. I'll give scenarios. On several occasions during my tenure in all the activities or organizations I've worked with, including sports, okay, you will call for a congress and say, okay, come and take positions. And before the congress, by the way, people will talk. Young people will talk on social media, on their bantabas, on their votes. Now, Congress will sit and voting. People will not take up responsibilities. They will even come, but they will not take. So it's about us changing our attitude as well, taking up those leadership roles. But how do we take up the leadership roles is ensuring that we are able to inspire ourselves. And I think one of the ways that we can inspire ourselves is organizing these mentorship programs, organizing these debates from school levels, community levels, but also taking up, responsibilities. And responsibilities in governance starts right from the school. Students' union, for instance, or becoming part of a member of the councilors if it is high school or junior secondary school, or kentemu councilor letin tefanabe councilor or I am a prefect also. It starts right there. You can do it, right? But it starts right there. Now, as you go on in our community setups, we have sports organizations or sport committees or VDCs. Take up those responsibilities. Learn from those things. As you go to your tertiary education again, for instance, the university, executive council unions, take up responsibilities. Youth councils, go, take up the lead. And then it transitions to the national or the central government. That's how we transition.
So it means like everything should start at a grassroots level.
Yes, the understanding, the will, the perception, everything starts right at the grassroots, right on the ground, and the understanding, the civic awareness. A lot of concentration is put on the elderly, right? Yeah. Okay, we have to give them, they are our leaders. But leadership is beyond. A young person can lead an elderly person. It's about partnership. I said this to someone a few days ago when we were talking about something similar to this. How do we keep saying youths are the future leaders or children are the future leaders of tomorrow, but I would always argue that they are the present and future leaders. Because you can't talk about the future if you are not involved at the present. So it starts now, and the engagement has to start now. It has to start somewhere. Now let's take, for instance, if you have not been engaged in any leadership role or in any governance structure whatsoever throughout your education career, throughout your community, in any place, in any nyaton kayake, you have no experience. Excuse me, I love blending the local dialect.
Okay. Because we have different views.
Exactly. So so if you don't have that experience whatsoever, and you come right through, to your youthful age or above youthful age, and now you want to go into politics. Mind you, it's when you start seeing people going into personalities instead of policies. Exactly. It becomes personal attacks, and you see all whatnot, because maybe, like she mentioned, the fear factor. Okay, Ninkombe program call for on a debate, bring your policy, I bring my policy. Let's argue on the policies. You might win me, but no, but ngala kulo kilila for and it becomes a problem. So it's about understanding and awareness, ensuring we have rigorous civic education. And I want to commend you both and Atlantic TV for coming up with this platform, because beyond just me, you may have a lot of other sources, other guests, the National Youth Council, the National Youth Parliament. Those that are actually real-time involved in governance and youth matters. You bring them on board. If possible, bring the Minister of Youth and Sports on this platform and talk to him about youth matters. Okay. I'm sure
that was our target, but it's like, unfortunately, it's because of their busy schedule. Two of them were not able to come up. So it's like, if I am right, from throughout your conversation, do you think like culture of silence is something that's also affecting most especially women to take up like the leadership role as a youth?
Absolutely, I agree. The fear of in recent times, I'll call cyberbullying, because now people have shifted from in Seben Johnson or to now hiding behind the keyboard and just saying stuff about you that you don't know about, just because maybe you put on a veil or because you wore something or you said something. So it's a lot. It's a package, right? And I think it starts from us within ourselves, holding ourselves to account before actually taking up a leadership role. Women are special. They are a special category or genes. I always say this. I see women as partners and not actually as properties. I always advocate for women rights and including them in our government. And I think of recent, we are doing well in that regard. There's so much to be done, of course. People need to give the privilege to women to take the leadership roles, but also our culture actually needs to actually also promote women participation, but women themselves need to be also improve. I'll give you another scenario. It's easier for men to come together and support one another than women, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. And this is not to actually disregard the efforts that women are doing, but today, if you want to take up a leadership role, or you come to your fellow woman and show your interest in taking up a leadership role, compare that to coming to me, and the support you may receive from a man would actually may differ. I'm not saying generally, but I'm just looking at some other instances, some very specific instances, special instances. So women need to come together, and I think so far they're doing well in that regard. I when I talk about women, someone always comes to my mind, a very exuberant youth, Annette Kamara, who is the president of Women Journalists. I think she's an inspiration to Gambian young women, and she's actually doing well with her team. And I think for people like you to also have this platform, you could always also invite women in governance, including her, and a lot of them to talk about women in particular, because women are a special genetic, like I said. We have our beef. One day we are done, we continue, or I can even have an argument or disagreement with you. Within that day we are done. The next day we meet and we are playing football. A woman, you have a disagreement right now, and it stays forever. Like you don't even have a conversation anymore. So we need to find a way of resolving that amongst ourselves as women.
We have to be united.
Exactly. Then once we see each other in us, like I see myself in you, you see yourself in me, it becomes easy for us to actually work together as a team and then get it. But yeah, women really need to be given the privilege to also take up the responsibilities, because it's them that can talk about their issues more better than someone representing them. And that is what youth in participation in governance is all about. It's not about you coming to me during consultation and then you go with the data or information, and then that's it. You don't get back to me. You don't implement, I mean, the feedback I've given you. No. So the same thing that is affecting women is the same thing that's affecting youth in general.
Exactly.
So it's about including them right from the beginning, that they are not just beneficiaries, but they are also co-creators of the policies, the laws, and the governance that we are talking about.
Okay. Thank you, Amadou. I have another question, which is, how can the government and other institutions support young people into taking part in governance and decision making?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The government, in my earlier statement, I mentioned that the government have a big role, and she posed me from there.
Okay.
First is the platform, the environment. I think so far we have those important structures in place. The National Youth Council, for instance, is one of the structures that a governance structure that is put in place for at central government to also support youth matters. But I think it should go beyond that. I think government should encourage by funding youth-led initiatives, youth-led projects, and I think we're also doing at least something around that. The YEP project, for instance, youth empowerment project that we are seeing from organizations, you know, other organizations around the country, activists amongst them also doing well. You have a lot of CSOs that are actually, I mean, doing youth advocacy and community works. And I think so far, the civic awareness needs to be raised. National Center for Civic Education, NCCE, has to go beyond, I mean, having programs during the electoral cycle or year, and you know, have it year in year out. They're doing well, to be honest, but more work needs to be done. But decentralization of our civic education also needs to be done by government. Let's say we include policy or frameworks at our school levels, where young people will be encouraged to take up leadership roles at a very early age. Once we have that, by the time they are at their tertiary education, or you know, after tertiary education transition into central government, it becomes easy for them. But also the barriers limiting some of the policies needs to be revised, making sure that youths are involved right from the beginning so that they know what affects them. For instance, this program that you're having, I mean, they can speak for themselves. You don't need to have someone to represent someone who is not a youth to represent youth. You don't need to have someone who is not a woman to represent women in terms of decision making. Have a woman there, have the person with disability right in the middle of discussions. Let him or her talk about issues affecting persons with disabilities, PWDs. You don't need Amadou to go and represent PWDs in a platform. Bring them on board. They are there. I mean, disability is not inability. They are doing their work. They are doing well in the country, and they are also contributing to the sustainable development. So have those. Government also needs to find a way. Our laws also we need to look at how restrictive our laws, and you know, for instance, the age, the culture, also the cost attached. If you look at the processes involved in politics, I mean, getting a leadership role, sometimes youths are discouraged. I mean, you would say, okay, I'm not financially strong to actually go in for this position. And yeah, I think those are means that government, aside sponsoring, of course, like I said, youth-led initiatives or activities that government can actually support, will also create the enabling environment for youth to not just serve as beneficiaries, but also serve as, I mean, co-creators of the policies that are governing us as a country.
Okay, Amadou, that's fantastic. Means like we have to change some of one or two things of our laws so that our youth can take up the responsibility. Moving on, are there any clubs, programs, or organizations to our viewers out there that wants to know, you might know about? Are there any organization, clubs, or programs to our viewers out there
that viewers should know about?
Yeah.
Organizations in what? That do what?
Like for youth, yes, for the youth.
Yes. We have lots of them. For instance, like I mentioned, the National Youth Council is representing all of us, me and you included.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, you have other youth-led organizations. We have CSOs as well who are coming up. For instance, the Young Journalists Association of the Gambia, for people like you who are, I mean, youths also involved in journalism, in the media sector. But aside that, we have girls in the front line. For instance, these are young girls in Fonyi, where you could also be a part of and also take part. We have Think Young Women. It's another, vibrant, organization that is actually looking at issues affecting women and girls. There are a lot. I may not have the full list offhand, but yeah, there are a lot of young youth-led organizations that are actually doing very well. But I can speak on their behalf that if you ask, one common challenge they all have would be funding, would be finance, would be the support. We are constrained with donor fatigue in the country, and that is why I said I think more investment needs to be done in youth-led initiatives and these organizations, whether they are CSOs, but there has to be a way to find a budget for them, because at the end of the day, they matter. Their involvement right at the present, right now, is what would actually give us a vibrant future for the Gambia. I don't know for any other country, but as long as we're talking about the Gambia, whose population is dominated by youth, I think we need to shift from just talking to actually implementing. To taking the action. Because for decades we've been talking about, you, they are the future leaders of tomorrow, youth make the highest population. That is not news to anybody. Everyone knows that youth make the highest in our population. But how much are youths involved in our governance? How much are youth involved in our day-to-day policy making and decision making? How many decisions are taken on behalf of young people, and young people are not seated on the table? We need to shift from just talking about it and getting it action done.
So as like the program said, actions speak louder than
words.
Exactly. So that's what we should always focus on.
Okay, Amadou, thank you so very much for that. One last question, which is, how can we address the gap between youth in politics and their actual participation in decision making?
Very important and a very tricky one. For someone like me, I've been there. I've been seated on one ground. I only wait election time. Take my voter's card, go and cast. I don't get myself into any political debate. I don't get myself into any discussions. Even campaigns, I don't go. I sit at home. Election December 5th. I go to Buyam, cast my vote, and go back to my house. That is political participation. I am participating, right? But how much am I involved? I am not involved in it, because at the end of the day, I am giving an opportunity to someone to decide on my behalf. But have I ever been participating from the consultation process? No. Right? No. Have I been engaging in politics right from the beginning? No. Do I even care what is happening? No. So we need to sit. Exactly. I just went and vote, and that's it. And at the end of the day, sit on the corner and say, no, Gambia, they can be different of. No, it's if that happens. So we need to shift from just going to cast our votes, and I think a lot in most cases the thing has been awareness. But thank God now we're shifting again with the invent of social media and vigorous youth-led organizations that are coming to actually advocate for discussions like this. What is actually creating the awareness? Before, you could have said, okay, there is lack of awareness for some youth, especially in our rural Gambia, that they think, okay, politics is for the elderly. Politics is for grown-up people and not young people. But at the end of the day, so we need to shift. It's about the perception. So now, if you're having programs like this, if you're having organizations, actually last month I was involved with Gambia Participate. Is a civil society organization that is doing very well in civic education and advocacy, going around radio stations across the country and have a civic education on radio programs, and civic education specifically focusing on electoral process. Okay, from registration of voters cards, getting the voters card, the eligibility and non-legibilities, and then going right to the very day of the election, getting people to know. And these conversations were done in the local languages so that people understand that this is what we mean by civic education. This is what we mean by participation in politics, because politics is not for the elder, it's for everyone. Exactly. Even the child that is born today has a right to be politically involved, because at the end of the day, the decision that the mother or the father is going to make will affect that child. So it's about shifting our perception regarding politics. That is one way. The other thing is, of course, still on your question regarding the barriers.
Yeah.
I think
youth participation in
the
politics.
interest and participation. Yeah, I think the other thing is also, aside the political, the will and the engagement, is the encouragement that they get. Now, if I come to you as a government or as an actor,
Exactly.
okay, come to you as a youth organization, youth community, and say, okay, we want to know your challenges, your problems, and then get your data, get the information, and then I am gone back to my office without getting back to you. That is not enough. Youths are not encouraged. They need to be, I mean, brought to the table of discussions, and after you need to get back to them that, okay, activity ABC, linga wahon nyeta yi, why we cannot implement nyeta yi, why nyari mo munen ko implement A, B, and C. At least they get, okay, you've heard me. Youths needs to be heard. They just don't need to be actually, I mean, contribute in terms of their ideas, and then that's it. The four ways for another thing also is the fear factor that you mentioned. In most cases, people are afraid to come out and participate or take up responsibilities. One, because they give up. Okay, like you mentioned, we you know, even if you, whatever you do, nothing will change. Something will change. Your voice matters. If you come on the table, someone comes on the table, inspire someone to come. At the end of the day, that is a strong voice you have there. And be rest assured, whether it is going to be now or tomorrow, something will change. Exactly. If you don't benefit directly, someone I mean under you will benefit, whether it's your offspring or the younger generation, they will benefit. So we need to shift from, I mean, leaving everything on, you know, despite the challenges that we have, we keep the blame game, and come on board and participate. Take what is rightfully ours as young people, be it from the male sex or the female sex. We need to come as a force, and that is also something that I want to talk about. Instead of having it's not a bad thing to have different organizations or different kafos or different setups, but the beauty of it would be consolidating those efforts as one organization or as one. Let's say, for instance, Fatoumata has her organization that is focusing on girls. In Fonyi, I have my organization that is focusing on women. In Fonyi, you have your organization that is focusing on children. In Fonyi, what is wrong with the three of us consolidating our efforts, reflecting women, children, and girls in Fonyi? Because
at the end of the day, all of you are aiming for one
thing. Fonyi benefits. That's just an example. The same applies to the Gambia generally, in general terms. Now, if you are having all these organizations, and that is one of the reasons that is causing donor fatigue, because where you are seeking funding, it's the same place where is seeking funding. It's the same, if you are always digging every day, you are digging from the same account. You are withdrawing, and you are not depositing. At the end of the day, it will be empty. It will be bankrupt, and organizations eventually die. They die out because there is no funding. I am struggling to fund my project because there is no money. The donors said they don't have money. Of course, they will not have money because Pate, Samba, Yoro, and Kumba are all implementing one program, going to the same donor. So, but then how do we amalgamate those projects or programs and work as a team, and not see each other as, you know, enemies, or see each other as someone that is actually, competition is nice. A healthy competition is okay, because competition yields output, it yields results.
If there is no competition, I think
exactly. It's good to have competition, but not the competition of envying. Every time
especially among women.
Anyway,
competition.
It's okay. It's fine.
Anyway, Amadou, what will be your last words to our viewers out there, most especially the youths watching this program, in order to be inspired to take up leadership?
Yeah, I think first is that they keep following this program, the Teen and Youth Matters, every Thursday, 11 to 12, from today.
Okay.
Are you right? Keep following Atlantic TV and be inspired by these programs, because, like I mentioned, maybe I am just the first to come here, but there will be people who are way more knowledgeable, way more experts than me to talk about these things. So for me, I am honored, to be honest, to be here and open the floor for the rest of them, right? But let the people keep following. And to you that are out there and feeling that there is no hope, there is hope if you start participating. Hope relies entirely on you. You need to take action. How do we take action is not to go on the streets. I am not the confrontational type. Anyone that knows me would know that confrontation is always the last resort. We will always have different avenues to explore, but it's important for also government and authorities to and mentors to expose our youth into leadership positions, into governance, because that is one way that once we are a knowledgeable society, especially a youth, a knowledgeable youth is a powerful one. Let's say in the next 5-10 years, in a decade to come, we have almost all these institutions, positions, high positions for that matter, dominated by youth. Imagine a country like the Gambia, where we have right from the president to the ministers to the civil society organizations to our regional bodies, all been dominated by young people, male and female. Imagine that kind of country.
That there is a hope in future.
It will be, that's dynamic there, that's power there. Yeah. So, but that cannot happen if we are folding our hands and blaming people. We need to come on board respectfully and share our ideas, not just our ideas, but also go in for the positions. And yeah, I've also heard or seen people that say, corruption, you even young people, all that.
So if you say everyone is corrupt,
yeah, even youths are corrupt. So for me, I think it's about how genuine you are between you and creator. I always say this: do what you will do when no one is watching.
Watching you.
Right?
Agreed.
Yeah, that is the only way to account yourself. Would you do something in public, something that you would not want to be accounted for? Do what you do in private,
even when
okay? No one is watching. Sincerely, bring it out and do it for the sake of Allah, for the sake of the God that you serve, whether it's Allah or someone else. The important thing is be genuine, be sincere about what you do, not just in words but in actions as well. For me, those are things, and we keep mentoring each other, we keep inspiring each other, we keep building each other rather than breaking each other. And the social media is so polluted with negativity. There's so much energy, the exuberance. I was invited as a guest speaker at Sangajur Youth Development Association's Congress, and I strategically they chose the topic for me, which is youth exuberance and how much they utilize it. Today we have the energy, we have the health, we have the strength, right, to talk, to do, to act. But how much are we investing? Where are we investing this energy? On negativity on social media. If you have invested that energy on something positive, something meaningful, let's say on YouTube, you are thinking of how to invent something, and at the end of the day, even if it is going to be a scarf, you sell that scarf for 150. That is self-employment.
Exactly.
You wouldn't rely on someone to buy a pad, for instance.
Right.
You would rely on yourself to buy your pad. As a girl, if it is a boy, you rely yourself to buy credit, or you know what you're going to buy, or a boxer, for instance. It's just an example. It's just to show you that self-power comes from within. It starts from within ourselves. The energy that we spend. I am someone that is on social media, but you rarely see my comments on social media. I post what I have to post, I find my way. That is because it's really very interesting to see the kind of energy, the negative energy you see on social. We can do better, and 90% of those on that social media are youth.
Means so, sometimes we need to be innovative.
Exactly, you need to be innovative. Make best use of social media. Is good. Don't take the credit. It's good, but now how much do you utilize it? How much energy are you investing in the social media that is plowing back to you and your family and the country? That is where we need to shift our attention to. Let's make best use of the social media. For instance, Atlantic TV today, I mean, this program is going to be aired on the social media. But how many people would actually watch this program? But you come through Atlantic, youth and teen madam, you go for something that is irrelevant or that has no impact in your life. But if I go to Atlantic TV, I'm scrolling and say, teen and youth matters. This is going to be interesting. Let me click and watch. I will be inspired. And it starts from there. So let's start, building one another instead of breaking one another, because it is us at present, our actions at present would actually judge us in the future. And the consequences would be very detrimental, if not for us, for our children.
Okay, guys, youth, as we all know, youth engagement is growing, but there is still more to be done. Your actions, your voices still count. Thank you to our wonderful guest Amadou Oba and to all our beautiful viewers out there. Always remember that your voices shapes your country's future. We keep on inspiring. And to my co-host.
Well, listeners and viewers, we have come to the end of first episodes of Youth and Teen Talk. So do join us next week Thursday, the same time from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. for more interesting conversation.
Bye guys.
Bye. Thank you.